Well, Jerónimo said I had 15 minutes or 1,500 words. Now, I'm a bit of a rebel, so I've written 1,501 word. The first question is, how did I get to ayahuasca and what were things like back then? My story started in 1971, not with ayahuasca, but with yagé, where the liana, Paritzis capi, is mixed with chacropanga. I come from Colombia, from Florencia, in the Amazonian in Colombia in 1947. I made it to Spain in 1965, and I stayed 7 years here too, studying theology and philosophy with these Colapian parents, first in Irache, Navarra, near Estela, and then in El Belda de Iregua in Logroño. I was kicked out, and then 5 years studying philosophy and humanities in the University Complutense in Madrid. In 1971, I had finished my degree. I was on holiday, visiting my parents in Florencia in Colombia, which was being transformed by the amount of pioneers who were coming from other regions to log and act as cattle herders. Florencia had been founded by Italian Capuchins. When I was little, there was no water and electricity. At a bar, I saw a couple trying to order something in appalling Spanish. So I went up to them and I gave them my magical sentence, which would change my life. I said, "May I help you?" It was Terence McKenna, 25 years old back then, traveling with Eric and Isfield, his partner at the time. I was a year younger. Terence was looking for yagé. I didn't know anything about it, but my father told me then that Apolinar Yajanijoy, an indigenous whom I've known all my life, because I used to buy from him when my grandma sent me, he knew about it. So Terence and Erica had planned to go to Peru, but they changed their plans, and they spent 2 months in Villa Gloria, a little country house that my parents had 14 kilometers away from Florencia. Through a German guy, Hans-Helder Mosler, who had a restaurant in the town, we got to meet Kalban Sabon, whom we called Carlos. He was Hungarian. He'd got some yagé from Apolinar, and Terence, Carlos, and myself took yagé for the first time that night. My friend Ere Fesman, a Hungarian psychopharmacologist who's next door at the Congress, told me that night was the beginning of the globalization of ayahuasca, in this case yagé, and Hungarian, 2 Germans, an American, and myself. In 1972, I went to Oslo to teach Hispanic literature in the Romanic letters department of the university, and in 1973 I spent 2.5 months with Terence at Berkeley University, reading everything I could get hold of on plants and psychotics. I read obviously Yagé Letters, which was published in 1973, and there was also Bruce Land, Wizards of the Opera Amazon, published by North Atlantic Books, and also the works by Schulters, Gordon Watson, Geraldo Russell, and others. I wrote to Russell Dormatom, who was born in Salzburg. He was called the father of Colombian anthropologist and ethnobotanist. He replied to me and said that I should study sciences to avoid, and I quote him, getting lost in the confusion of those who believed in other realities. So first I studied maths and then chemistry, parallel to my classes of literature. And this was not liked by my colleagues. And when a position came vacant, it was given to a Norwegian guy. So I decided to go to the Sorga School of Economics to teach Spanish in Stockholm, where I worked for 32 years. I'm now retired. There I knew that Rafael Castel, who in the 20s had done some field work amongst the Swarts in Ecuador, had written about their ceremonies on Natem, this Api Mascaliandin Tacambra, and tobacco. He held the position that I held back then. In 1979, I traveled all over South America, and I got to Florencia back at the end of my holidays. I looked for Apolinar in Yureyaco, where Terence and myself had tried 7 years before to get to, but we were stopped by the jungle and the rain. And there I had my second experience with yagé. I was too late to study different crops of yagé, which had been destroyed by pioneers who had taken hold of Caquetá. That region has been widely deforested. So, second question, why did I stick to ayahuasca? Well, that second ceremony in 1979 convinced me that I didn't have a clue about the epistemology of the indigenous peoples and how they conceive the world and their non-human inhabitants, that is to say, the plants and the animals. So I went back a year later to learn with them, or I wanted to, but he died before I got there. So I went to see Terence in Sebastopol, California, and he said I should go to Iquitos. Near there, I met Don Emilio Andrade Gomez and other vegetalists. I shot a film, I think the first one on ayahuasca, which was presented in 1981 in Finnish television, and the following year in Spanish television, in one of the programs by Fernando Jiménez del Oso. Most of you are too young to remember that. There I was interviewed together with Miguel de la Cuadra Salcedo. I think that was the first time when in Spain they heard about ayahuasca. You can find the film on YouTube. If you Google my name and Don Emilio and his little doctors, somebody has put it there with rather poor English subtitles, but there you go, 27 minutes. My main finding when I was there with Don Emilio and the other vegetalists was the concept of master plants. Don Emilio used to call the ayahuasca and other plants, he used to call them doctors. Some of them used as additives and others used by themselves. My article, The Concept of Master Plants in Peruvian Amazonian, was published in English in 1984 in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology and Spanish and German in 1985 and the following year in French. In 1985, I organized the first symposium on ayahuasca, which I titled Shamanism and the Use of Plant of the Genus Paniceroptips and its Additive Interdisciplinary Approach. I was always interested in an interdisciplinary approach, and I left the door open to Banisteriopsis genus plants and their additives. Dennis McKenna was one of the people I invited, and Schultes sent us an article which was read there. We were given a room smaller than this, and it was packed full. All the papers were published in Mexico in a special issue of America Indigena. That symposium was the first of many others in which I cooperated. I also met Pablo Maringo Copalca through Dennis. I asked him for his visions, and that led to a cooperation of 9 years, which led to, for example, the book's Ayahuasca Visions, which is considered by some as crucial in the development of the internationalization of ayahuasca. I've always been interested in interdisciplinary approaches. I've cooperated with Edgar Plesker, scientists, with works on hemispherian rivalry and the first interdisciplinary study on ayahuasca. I've also organized several art shows, and I also published Ayahuasca Readers, which you can buy here, and we hope will soon be published in Spanish at La Llave Publishing House. Third question, what do I thank ayahuasca the most for? Well, personally, Yagé and ayahuasca have marked my life deeply. Pretty much everything I've done since I came across it has been one way or another related to these amazing plants. I was lucky enough to have indigenous masters such as Don Basilio Gordon Chipivo in Santa Rosa de Pirococha, by the River Cayali, also Don Pascual and Ashaninka by River Pasardua, Salvador and Miguel Chincol in Colombia, and also I knew and was oriented by some pioneers such as Eduardo Schultes, Albert Hoffman, Rosmatovs, Shulkin, Peter Force, Michael Harnen, Brad Messing, all of them unfortunately passed away now. I also made new friends in my generation and younger even, who are in different professional fields and from whom I constantly learn. Personally, also, these plants have opened up amazing worlds which I didn't know existed. They've also made me more curious and more aware that we inhabit an amazing planet that we need to recover before it's too late. I'm coming up for 72, and the last 48 of my life, one way or another, I've devoted to this mysterious knowledge. I am deeply grateful to the plants for the wonderful, rich life that they've given me, and for seeing that some people have benefited from the paths I opened. Together with my wife, Adriana Roses, 20 years ago, we started a small institution in Florianópolis, south of Brazil, where we have a botanic garden of some 400 species and a project to reforest the Amazonian shrubs. The plants also make me feel that we're surrounded by intelligence, that we share this planet with many other non-human persons. This is not the end of the path. There's a lot to learn and to do, because the appalling situation we're in is a duty for those of us who had the privilege of having access to these powerful plants. And we need to be activists one way or another. We need to cooperate with indigenous communities and with those who fight, those who want to destroy our planet for monetary purposes or just out of sheer ignorance. Thank you.
La siguiente ponente es Esther.
The next speaker is Esther Martínez Ibar. She's a physician and specialist in pediatrics, and she has introduced Yage in Catalonia through Girona, precisely.
Buenas tardes, buena tarde y good afternoon.
So, first of all, I would like to thank the ICERS organization for remembering the start of this great worldwide trend now. And well, my story began in 1991 through Claudio Naranjo. I went to this course. I thought it was about meditation because the title was Work for Peace. And unexpectedly, I found ayahuasca there because he had invited there some people from Rio, from Brazil. And I was so open to meditation that I thought this substance was really helpful. So I had no resistance or expectation. And, ayahuasca really penetrated in me down to the marrow of my bones. And then from then on, I went to Rio de Janeiro, I went to Mapia, and then in 1993, I landed in Girona, in Banyolas, with 40 liters of daime, after having wanted to participate in the learning work in Mapia, and also the work of showing to the world what saying daime and ayahuasca are. So I came here with this amount of daime, and in 1993 we started working there with these asfardados, so this initiation, this with the initiated, and we were making it known. And we had this huge belief and conviction that this was a power that had been kept secret down in the remote Amazon, and we had been fortunate enough to get to know it, and we thought as many people as possible should know about it as well. So we had this faith, this belief, this great respect also, and also we were a little afraid because it was a completely uncharted territory for us. So we started working with our maraca we had brought from Mapia, as well as the 40 liters of daime, and little by little we started to learn the hymns, to sing them during the work, the structure of the ritual. We read whatever was at the reach of our hand, which was not much, honestly, but there was the book by Eda Frois, the book by Edward Matrai, and I kept collecting information on all the historical grounds of Saint Daime, the Sebastião power, the creation of Mapia. So I was totally enthusiastic because I thought I had found what I might I could never have expected. This is concealed, this hidden jewel I had been fortunate enough to find. The first time I went to Mapia, maybe there was just a handful, maybe 10 or 12 Europeans that had gone there. So it was a really pure place back then. When you read the novels, you hope to be lucky enough to find that, a pure place with a secret, in this case, of a substance that would bring you in contact with the highest levels of spirituality and with unknown worlds you couldn't begin to explain. So we started doing this work, and also doing the 30 and the 15th and the 30th of every month. We would have the Daime calendar. So in the beginning, it was 30 of us, then 60. Then we looked for a place to rent it, and then having our place there to engage in our work. We also found a way to bring in Daime with no problems, and we tried to find information as to how to legalize it. We contacted some lawyers, and they told us to use freedom of religion, so tried to prove it was a sacrament to us, and a number of steps were taken, which at that point got us nowhere. But we created this association, and we got organized. The Brazilians in Mapia with Mafin Alfredo started to come here. They would come here like twice a year, and then when the structure was built and robust enough, then they would come 3 or 4 times a year. I was also very fortunate because I offered my house and they would stay there. Mafin Alfredo and his entourage have stayed like 5 weeks at my place, and that was like the hospitality hub for everyone interested in ayahuasca. It was a very rich period. It was so rich and interesting because we absorbed everything, because we were interested in this very unknown thing, and we were convinced it was something so beneficial we had to make it known. So our mission, to my understanding, was make ayahuasca known for the greater good and the greater benefit of as many people as possible. And this is why we would celebrate the ritual when it was due, and we would set up the structure so that people would come in and they would feel in this completely safe medium, this support, and they could work on their spiritual progress. So Padrino Alfredo from Spain started to go to other places in Europe, such as Italy and France. So actually the European expansion started there. And in 1996, that is 3 years after 15 people started here, very discreetly, we organized the first European encounter of Daimist churches, and people came from all over Europe, from the Netherlands, where Padrino Alfredo had been sowing the seeds, and from many countries in Europe. They would come to this meeting, and that stirred an exponential growth. I was living at that time again in Banyolas, in Girona, and of course we would be looking for houses and places to organize the rituals, and everything was in the province of Girona. So when Girona was chosen for this conference, I felt like a circle was being closed, and it was so relevant for me. And then when I heard about this tribute to the elders, I felt really excited, and I saw this circle was being closed. That germ that started with little with few resources, but with a lot of enthusiasm and conviction. Then 30 years after, it has become this. And this is really exciting. First, there was a daime, but this gave rise to a whole number of people working with ayahuasca to start coming in and start expanding, not just in Spain or Europe, but throughout the world. And they would spread this jewel that had been luring and hidden for so long down there in Amazon. When Padrino Alfredo came here for the first time in 1992, I understood that these things, the El Dorado, the Spanish explorers had gone to find, this was it. And 500 years after, it came back to us in a completely unexpected way. So I can't remember the questions now, but I'm grateful to ayahuasca because it was really a turning point in my life. 100% has been devoted to ayahuasca for 13, 14 years. Then I had the need to step back to look at the forest from the distance. But I'm really grateful because ayahuasca has taught me and has left me with a number of pillars for my life, for my whole life. So in ayahuasca, in Saint Daime, we sing Daime strength, Daime being firm and being strong. So this is what we sing in the hymns. So this strength in your work and this strength in your thoughts when you are under the power of this substance, but you have to be strong not to be carried away to where you want to go. Also strength in love and strength in your attitudes and actions. This is a great learning I got from Daime. Strength of heart, strength of mind, and strength of action. And I have used it. I have put it to use afterwards. I still do. And this is like my connecting thread all of the time. And sometimes when you stumble in life, same thing as with the works in Daime. If you've been there, you know you dance and you are with the strength of ayahuasca, but you have to keep your pace and your rhythm, and that's where you need strength, because otherwise it would tumble down. So when the waves of life also make you stumble, then the strength of ayahuasca can help you going through. So that's another thing I'm very grateful for. And there's something else I'd like to highlight, and this is that Saint Daime and these more regulated works, so to speak. The first ayahuasca works started here in Catalonia. The first time they came from Brazil, it was the Saint Daime. So Saint Daime was the one that started to spread the knowledge of ayahuasca throughout the world and how to work with it. So this is why I want to pay tribute and to say thanks, because if there's 1,500 people here today after being 15 in 1993, this is thanks to the whole expansion work done by Saint Daime. And this path, this trail that was blazed, was then walked by many to the point of today, all of us here being today. So I'm really absolutely grateful for this path opened by the Saint Daime to make known this wonderful substance, and I'm convinced that it has helped not just me but thousands of people, and it can go on helping people. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you also to the to ICERS for carrying out this task of spreading the word on ayahuasca, not just in a traditional manner, but also the scientific trials and everything. All this wrapping around the issue is fundamental. Thank you for this work. And also thank you for the existence of such a powerful substance that connects us to the ineffable. So wonderful that actually the first time I went to Rio de Janeiro, I was in a bank exchanging money, and on the front page of a magazine there was ayahuasca. So it's like when you're pregnant, you see pregnant women everywhere. So I was working with ayahuasca, I saw ayahuasca everywhere, and it was in a financial magazine, but ayahuasca was on the front page. And there was a paper, a story saying, how is it possible that from a liana, of which there's millions, different millions in the Amazon, and from a leaf, and there's also hundreds of thousands similar leaves in the Amazon. How was it possible to find? How could they find exactly the match that created this great product, which is ayahuasca? And it went on saying a super powerful computer, an IBM computer at the time, it would take it 75 years at least to try all the combinations to get to the right one. So they were wondering in this paper how they had been able to get to that. So I guess it's a mystery, but it has to do with the fact that the world of plants, and I've learned this from Daime too, the world of plants gives us the information, and this is probably where the knowledge comes from. At some point, probably is like when they started trying the mushrooms, but you know, plants are the great allies of people, master plants, healing plants, plants that keep us warm or provide us with shadow and make this planet green and wonderful and with water. So the other thing I got from Daime is a completely unconditional love for the world of plants and everything it gives us. And this, together with the expansion of ayahuasca, is so important that we should really respect the world of plants, because they are the ones that give us much more than we can give back. So thank you very much.
Esther nos habla.
Esther has spoken to us about the way of Daime in Catalonia. Now Carlos del Alcual will talk to us about what happened in Madrid. He was one of the founders of the church in Madrid, and he was also intensely part of the first court case in Spain on ayahuasca with Santo Daime, and it was through that the national church was created.
Bueno, buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank ICERS for their kind opportunity to speak to you from my heart, because I think that's the only way to understand this way and this plant. Those of us who are not used to academic forum, and we speak from our heart, it's important to have the option to be more academic. Before, we were kind of half-jokingly saying that up until recently, it was us paying tribute to the elders, and now, all of a sudden, here we are. We are now the elders. We are the pioneers. As one of the songs from Daime says, time goes by, it doesn't wait for anyone. So, starting at the very beginning, I'll say that for me the beginning was unexpected. I was 21, I'm talking about 1987. The context, just for you to understand, was the movida in Madrid, the post-movida, the social scene in Madrid back then. Lots of partying, clubbing, drugs, sex and rock and roll. I was 21, and one fine day, my brother, and he should have been here because he really was, I believe, the first pioneer of ayahuasca in Spain. He spent 15 years in Mapia. He was a hippie there, and that was his path into it. And he came back from one of his trips to Mapia, and he invited me. He had a little bottle of daime. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a kind of drug or something. And he presented it. We had a little meeting in a country house in Madrid, some mates, and we drank some. I mean, I'd only had few other things, and for me it was striking. It was virginal. I spent all night long just sitting on an armchair, just feeling. I was so aware. I kept kind of pinching myself because I couldn't believe it. It was an experience with fire, with guides, something which even today, 30-something years later, I still share things from back then. So it's also helped me when we've planned for the first time for many people. We keep saying the same thing: expect nothing and you'll receive everything. And that's what happened to me. I expected nothing. I wasn't looking for anything. I didn't have a clue. And it was so wonderful. I didn't feel ill. I didn't feel dizzy. It was amazing. For me, that was my first big lesson from the plant. The second lesson was the day after, when I was traveling. I'm a journalist, and I was doing a documentary with some guys. We were going to Alicante, and my brother said, "You watch out, because this doesn't mix well with alcohol, okay? Stay away from stuff." And I said, yeah, sure. So we got to Alicante, left our stuff at the hotel, and we went for supper, and after supper we went for a drink. Halfway through my gin and tonic, I felt so ill. I thought I was going to pass out. So my second lesson was that day: you have to respect times. I think I've never felt so ill, and I never felt so good. I never felt so ill with alcohol as that second day after plant. I realized how important it is to do things right, to respect times. I feel so grateful to that first experience. I've always felt blessed in the Santo Daime tradition. It's always said, and I think everybody in ayahuasca said this: if the plant treats you well for the first time and you flow with the experience, it's a blessing. It's an abençoamento, as they say in Portugal. It's a blessing from the guardians, the people from the woods, the astral keepers. It's always said that you don't look for the plant seeks you out. For me, it was clear that I was sought after by the plant. The following year, I went to the jungle, Mapia. Rather than daime, because, I mean, matrix has always been matrix, and a few days after that, it just destroys everything. So some time later, I went to the jungle just to see my brother, see what life was like. There was no internet. There was only... And I had an amazing initiatic trip just to get there. And there in Mapia, I also got to meet Sebastián, thank Lord. And I spent 2-3 months there. And I had your typical young guy experience in the jungle. I was looking for nothing. And at the beginning it was hard for me, and it was all the rituals and, men and women and ties and what's this? And it's like a sect in the middle of the jungle. It's like a weird film. I thought, what the hell am I doing here? But in the end, I got caught. I mean, the sensations, the feelings from the padrino, the finchio, not harming, the introspection. I remember it all vividly. So on my way back, Padrino Alfredo gave me a bottle of daime with 4 or 5 liters. And he said, Juan, he said, something like, with you. Well, invite your friends, share it. He gave me a few tips. He said, these 5 liters are not for you. You have to invite your friends. So he said, don't you all have it? Share it all. He said something like that. At the beginning, I didn't understand what he was saying. But then I got home and I got together with a few friends and we had some sessions and we kept up our studies. We didn't have a clue. And the first time I drank, it was listening to a Pink Floyd tape. A tape. I mean, we now say tape and the young people say, tape? What do you mean? What's a tape? I mean, a recording, okay? I mean, the equivalent now would be Spotify kind of thing. And that was Pink Floyd. So we got back here and we did it with the people from the Movida, from the Madrid social scene. We had our first sessions, traballos, as we used to call them, at home, quite quiet, relaxed, with good musicians. I don't know, we had the drummers from Los Secretos, people from the social scene. It was really interesting. We had amazing parties with somebody who was amazing, Dacio Membrone, a key bridge. He was one of the initiated ones, a fardado from Mapia, a great musician, somebody full of light. And we had amazing sessions, amazing traballos, something pretty hippie and, apparently disorganized, but it was good. It was full of plant and enthusiasm. We were young and full of happy energy. Back then, it was like, at the beginning, when you fall in love with something and you're full of passion, you go back and you keep trying to relive that moment of passion when everything counts, when you're full of it. So we continued with our process, and with all these people, other things came up, and drugs came up, and misencounters and conflicts, and things that were not well aligned with the path of the plant. So back then I had a feeling that I didn't feel safe. I was kind of traveling between two worlds, and I decided to go back to Mapia. That was when my first son was born, and I wanted to see what things were like. In Mapia, in that second journey, fleeing I don't know what, I decided to go through to become a fardado, an initiated one. I felt that that would give me security, safety, it would give me order, and I started understanding things and wanting to follow them. So I became a fardado, and I came back again with another 5 little bottle, and I went back to my work in a different way, sharing with the colleagues from this line and other new people who turned up, who came from that more therapeutic line, Babia, like Esther was saying. There were like 2 groups, the Daimista group, which was more serious, more studious, more legal, and the hippie side of things. Now, the following year, in 1992, together with the 5th centennial, we asked Padrino Alfredo to come. That was an amazing journey. The first trabajos, the works we did in Madrid, it was like witnessing a magic event. When everything came together in time, the people who had to be there, the things that had to happen, we just couldn't believe it. There were some trabajos there with 10 fardados. It was amazing. It was like igniting the blue tape, and things would just blow out of all your control. It was amazing. Really, had I not been there, I wouldn't have believed it, just hearing it secondhand. And back then, it was like, hundreds of people, and being here today, it's a bit like that. This is a huge gathering with 1,400 people, and it's like closing something It's like a vision that becomes a reality, and that's the way of the plant. And oops, I'm on my count back. I need to go to my second question. How has the plant changed me? I don't really know, because I started so young that my whole life has built upon it. My family, my children, my work, my career, it has been built around the plant. So I don't really know what the plant has changed. But it has certainly given me more awareness. It has given me the opportunity to live life more fully, a more colorful life. I don't know what it would have been like without the plant. It might have been better, materially speaking, but not spiritually, I'm convinced. So, at the end of the day, we are here. What have I learned? I've learned to be a warrior. I've learned not to give up, as Esther said. I've learned to remain firm and strong in love, in finding beauty in love. I stood to Daime, I became fardado, and then I undid it because I realized the commitment it was. I spent 2 years drinking with shamans all over the place, looking for gaps and mistakes in the ritual until all my anxieties were dispelled. And with Daime and the plant in general, what I found was the instruments, the instructions, the tools to win in this battle of love, which is life. And you just need to practice it with strength, with determination, with perseverance, understanding the things we want. And that's about it. What else? More protection. Yes, I feel that the plant is a safe way, Santo Daime, the order that I used to hate at the beginning. I realized that Santo Daime is a format that allows you to do trabajos, works with hundreds of people, and this requires order to let people work comfortably. And that's about it. I just want to express my gratitude, say that this is a path to work. I feel I'm lazy by nature, and I've learned to work. That's why in Santo Daime we call ceremonies traballos, works, because they are for people who want to work, who want to improve their life and the lives of those around them. So I just want to thank all my friends here at the panel, and I'll see you all on the way. Parabéns por todos.
Gracias, Carlos. El siguiente ponente, José María Fericgla.
So, about the next speaker, José María Fericgla, I will only say he's been a constant focus of activity, constant source of activity, ranging from books to conferences to experiential workshops that some way or another have touched the lives of thousands of people, I would say. So thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. They're warning me about the time already. Before starting, I would like to I would like to share with the previous speakers and with you, of course, my gratefulness for organizing this conference, because we all bring life to it, and organizing a conference like this is somehow like bringing together a large family, the family of those that have been touched by ayahuasca, that have an experiential interest in the effects of ayahuasca. And of course there's scratches, there's some the grandpa who is grumpy, and then the brother-in-law who is wise as, and the thing is that there's all kinds of people. Same thing here. It's like bringing together a large family, and even the strange cousins that won't talk to each other will sit around the same table on Christmas Eve to eat the turkey, which would be ayahuasca in this case. So again, I'm really thank you. I'm really grateful for being here, and I'm grateful to everyone that organizes the logistics and everything related to this conference. And as for the tribute, what should I say? Well, we were talking about this with Juan Carlos. You know, tributes are normally done to old people. So when they said we're going to pay a tribute to you, I started saying, wow, I must be old. But then thinking about the volunteers and the people in ICERS, it's true that well, many of them have been my disciples or my cooperators, my collaborators. In the beginning, I helped them looking for methods and things to experiment with awareness and conscience. So the first time I tried ayahuasca was like 29 or 30 years ago. So that's a whole generation. I am now in the second generation of interested people, without counting the children, of course, the third generation. So I'm not going to tell you many biographical details because they tend to be boring. But for me, ayahuasca was the end of a journey that started when I was 15, and I was given my vocation in an undisputable way, and I knew that I had to devote my life to expand conscience, starting with mine and understanding what was this human ability that make us human, and then looking for methods. So I started by studying psychology when I went to college. Then when I was at the end of my college studies, I saw it was very reductionist. It was for neurotical people, and it had nothing to do with the vocational mandate that had been given. So I started studying music, and I thought maybe through music I will find my realization. But no, I even recorded a couple of records as a trumpet player, and then I have worked in other records with authors and singers. So music was really useful for me, but it was not my career. It was not my life career. And then I found anthropology, and I was fascinated by this academic discipline that combines cultural with biological, with sociological. So I dove into anthropology, but always focused and oriented to the study of human conscience, which since the day I was 15 to this day is my only real interest. Everything else is just to spend and to pass the time while I'm on this earth. So then I started to experiment with some substances, not ayahuasca, but LSD, peyote, ecstasy, synthetic drugs were the thing at that time. I also started using breathing as a propulsor of ecstatic states of conscience, and I understood that they shouldn't be taken out of the values that envelop them. So the psychedelic experience when only looking for being stoned is really far away from my thinking. So I don't know how, but I guess reading, I found out that the swart people are the ones with more psychoactive substance use and frequency of use. So in 1989, I went to Ecuador, where the members of the Swar tribe live, and I tried and were to try ayahuasca and brugnancia. And then it was in 1989 or 1990, and after a few attempts, the classic attempt, they would give me things which were not ayahuasca, but then at some point, a man, and we became friends, he said, they're pulling your leg. This, what they are giving to you is not ayahuasca. If you want to try it, come with me. So he introduced me to this shaman, and I had a real first experience, a deep one. So then I came back, and I was lucky because somehow I met Luis Eduardo, and we met at some point in Barcelona at my place. You were with your Finnish wife. You had just had a baby, and he had been researching ayahuasca for some time. Then after that, I met Esther, and she invited me to some trabalhos of Daime, and it was another way to try ayahuasca beyond what I had tried in the Amazon. But for me, again, it was just one of the diverse propellers existing to find the experience of the ineffable, of the transcendence. And actually the quest for this existence and the methods to get there, I would cause really wars. All the wars in mankind have not been really caused by the occupation of territories or financial resources, but this. So in 1992, I was invited to this conference in San Luis Potosí in Mexico. It was a closed-door conference for experts from all over the world in psychoactive substances. I was then investigating and researching Amanita muscaria and other mushroom-based entheogens. And then I met Jonathan Ott, and we became best friends since that time, as well as other people from North America, Europe, and South America working on this field. And at that time, 1992, as Luis Eduardo said before, I mean, there was there's a lot of information now, but in 1992, it was just a handful of people, and we had been tracking specialized papers and specialized magazines or books with very short runs and small publishing houses, and we would know each other by the name. But it was not as easy as it is now. So in San Luis Potosí in 1992, together with Jonathan, we said we should wake up the world. You know, they say drugs kill you, but then we reached this covenant, which is still in force. That was in 1992. In 1994, I went back there and organized a world conference on entheogens. It was organized here in Lleida. It was also related. Well, I started the Condiciones book collection, which is also specialized in entheogens, and I kept on teaching in university and, you know, living my life until 2004. And then in 2004, after organizing many workshops for years using urolimics, breathing, which is one of the many variants of breathing, creating hypoxia in the brain. For many years in 1997, I had been devoting part of my life to those workshops in which there's been thousands of participants. So in 2004, I thought the next step is to build a place, because there was no place, no appropriate place, and we were always looking for some places. So in 2004, there had been enough people in my workshops and seminars, so I thought I would create this center created for ecstatic experiences, and I founded Can Benet Vives, the Can Benet Vives campus. We've got around 5,000 visitors every year now, and we have yoga courses, meditation courses. I will not say if we take ayahuasca there or not, because I can't remember, and this is not so legal, so I can't really remember. Anyway, in 2004, as I said, and until today, until this day, I created this place, designed and decorated specifically. The staff there, 15 people working there, are also specifically prepared to cater for any breakdown, which fortunately are not frequent, but you can have a breakdown, a crisis, when looking for the experience of the transcendent and ineffable. And then a couple of years ago, to finish up, I still go frequently to the Amazon area, to Peru and Brazil, but mainly Ecuador. And 2 or 3 years ago, I found out just by asking around to some good friends and shamans, and I found out that someone was starting to steal ayahuasca to sell it to Westerners. So when I found out, I said, well, I don't want to play this game. And then I recalled our research in 1991, funded actually by the Catalan government with the participation of Dr. Joan Obiols. He just came in, an old friend, and I believe he's now the president of ICERS. So congratulations, Joan. Anyway, as I said, 2 or 3 years ago, I found out that some people were starting to steal ayahuasca to sell it to Westerners, and even indigenous peoples and shamans wouldn't want to get into that, and I wouldn't want to organize ayahuasca sessions in Spain knowing that it had been stolen from South America. So this is what led to my current project, which was starting an ayahuasca plantation here so that it can serve the Westerners, and also if it can mean jobs for some indigenous people who will tend for it. And some time ago, with the support of some friends, we bought a plot of land in the Amazon, and we are refurbishing it. We are remodeling it because there were some cabins in the middle of the jungle, and hopefully this will start in September. And our plan is to have a place there where we can grow ayahuasca. Around 400 lianas of ayahuasca have been planted, and from there we will legally and lawfully distribute ayahuasca, lawfully prepared. Also, it also means jobs for a group of Quichuas, and also we will organize Western style ayahuasca sessions with orientation for patients as well in the near future, hopefully. And also it is a place with anthropological and ethnographical interest to visit the jungle and so on and so forth. And also to finish up, Geronimo gave us these 3 questions. I can't even remember what they were. But anyway, to finish up with some answer to these questions, again, I'm not going to tell you about my life because everyone have their memories and anecdotes. And I've learned over time that if people listen to you when you're telling them your life, it's because of it's out of kindness, not because they have any genuine interest. But there's 2 or 3 things I actually learned from ayahuasca which could be useful for everyone. The first thing is that the only thing you've got is life, and you should cling to it because that's the only thing we have. Second thing I learned is that there's just as much as there is, and everything else is a fantasy. And this is a challenge for human beings to be with your feet on the ground. And the third thing I learned is that you only have your life, there's only what there is, and everything goes in life. And of course, you shouldn't take pity on yourself. That's the only thing that won't be of any use in your life. And with this, again, I would like to thank again ICERS for the organization of this great event. Also, thank you for putting up with us. Thank you, Geronimo. Thank you, everyone.
Gracias, Josep.
Thank you. We're now going to listen to Pilar, Daimista, and also mayor of the community in La Garrocha, where many generations are looking for sustainable ways of life with the support of the plants. Pilar?
Hola, buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. I apologize because I'm losing my voice. I may lose it altogether during my presentation, and that will mean that I've said everything I had to say. First of all, I want to thank ICERS for this gathering on ayahuasca. It's wonderful that this can come to pass. It's wonderful that it's understood that these plants do not have to be forbidden because they're not drugs. They've never been, they never will be. They are millennia old plants. They've been like this forever, helping people wake up, connect, heal. So we must feel grateful to these plants. We can't feel that it's something that's going to hurt us, it's going to make us go crazy. No. So the first question was, how did I get to ayahuasca? Well, through some families who worked with public health. I come from a hippie world. I'm very fortunate. I'm still in a hippie world because it marked my life. For me, the hippie movement was a return to nature. Going back to the world, because we were rejecting the world that happened back then, and we wanted to go back to being self-sufficient. We're still trying. And I'm doing my best to be as self-sufficient as I can in communion with nature, planting things at home. And when they tell me, give us your CV, well, my CV, my resume is that I grow cabbages back home. At the end of the day, everything else is just that. I got to ayahuasca through Santo Daime. I used to look after a little girl so that her mom could go to trabajos, to the works. And when the mom came back, she was so full of light, full of power that I thought, I want that. So during the hippie years, I also smoked a lot of marijuana, which also helped me open up to going back to nature. It helped me remember what planet we live in. I quitted plants or everything for many years because I felt that for some time that everything I had to learn, I had already learned, and I couldn't get anywhere else through there. So after some time, I got to Santo Daime, ayahuasca. And I went to these trabajos, to these works, and I fell in love. I fell in love. But I strongly felt that it was not my way. Now, this year, it will be my 25th year of taking Daime regularly. I haven't gone crazy, I haven't got sick. Well, I've got a cold, but I'm not sick. And my life has changed considerably. I feel that what the Santo Daime did to me was to make me feel connected, to connect my mind, to open up my capacity to feel together with everything around me. It linked me to nature because it is a plant, so it comes from nature. It's a plant which is millennia old. It's deeply rooted in the planet. It's connected to the cosmos. So when you take it, when you drink it, when it becomes part of you, it awakens your memory. It reminds you that we are deeply linked to the plant and to the world and connected to the cosmos. And it reminds us that we are now living this important moment of world, planet, and cosmic change. And it's very important to be in tune, to be together, united, connected to everything that happens on our planet. It's important for us to remember first who we are, and that's something that ayahuasca gives you. It reminds you who you are. And then where you live. I am lucky enough to live in the countryside, quite off the beaten track, surrounded by nature, wonderful views. When I wake up in the morning, I say to myself, I'm part of the nations of wonders, because our planet is a planet of wonders. And our current way of life is taking us away from this. Still, our grandparents used to live in the countryside. Now, the children who live in Barcelona, their family is in town, in the city, and they only see nature on internet, on screens. And when they go to the woods, they're scared if they see a spider. I mean, a spider. Some people see a spider and they just feel like eating it. So for me, what ayahuasca has given me is this connection. I was amazed at becoming part of the vegetable world, the world of plants, of woods, a different space from the one we're used to, connecting to the energy that nature emanates, this whole source of light and power, which helps us regenerate and recover. It brings me back to contact with nature, with the planet, with our mother, because it is the mother. So I drank daime regularly for some time. In the end, I went to the Amazons because I wanted to know where the plant came from and how it came to be, as somebody said before, how that liana and that bush got together to give us the powerful transformation. I understood that the vine, the liana, grows in the shadows of the jungle, and it grows up, seeking light. And the leaf of the chacruna gives color to ayahuasca. It gives you the vision, the joy. It's the male and female to as always. So how could it be that that memory remained alive until it reached us? It's an amazing mystery. It was hidden for many years, used in only a few native peoples who kept the memory alive so that at times of dire need, it could be shared by everybody so that everybody could have the opportunity to connect, to go back to this union. Because what ayahuasca brings us, first of all, is it heals our relationships, all our relationships, starting with the family and finishing with those we do not like. That's the idea. Being at peace with everybody, having good relationships. Many ways, many caminos, repeat this sentence, for all my relationship, por todas. It helps us work because it does that. It does trabajos. It helps us work. The plant guides you, but you need to work, or else you'll just be left there doing nothing, and then it'll be over. Nowadays we have a huge open supermarket for sacred plants. A great supermarket. You can get ayahuasca, bulfo, peyote, San Pedro, you name it, you can buy it. But originally, to have one of these plants, to work with it, you had to go through a long initiation process. You had to get ready to know when the people you're working with need some support, some song, when the energy moves, and then you need to shift things so that they harmonize again. It's a long school. For me, that's what Santa Daime is, a long school where slowly, gradually, I keep learning. I think I'll learn all my life. I don't know if I'll ever graduate. I think I'm still in kindergarten. I hope I'll make it to the end of the year. And I think that the plant just gives us all these blessings to our life. We also have sacred plants here. It's not just in the Amazon that they have it. It's just that the sacred plants here were uprooted suddenly. In America, they were lucky enough to hide them in the jungles. The secret was kept hidden and protected. Here, it was kind of disappeared, and we just survived in Europe with our way of life, with our ideas, thinking that plants are drugs and all that stuff. But here there are also good plants from this soil, and we're beginning to remember, we're beginning to go back to our ancestors, to our sacred areas. It's not just in the Amazons, it's here as well. We're recovering the memories that come from here, from these origins. So daime in my life has been a blessing. First, I was told that you can never invite daime because it's good for me, but I don't know about you. So you can never invite anybody, you just get there. You feel curious, you see somebody drinking it, you want to know about it, so you make your way there. Nobody's going to invite you. Let's do this. No. You have to let the plant call the people the plant wants to be drunk by. And then I went on drinking daime because it's important for me. It's important for my well-being, for my physical, emotional, mental well-being. I've got my little home back in the mountains. I've got my church. We do family trabajos, family work, but we do our work mostly with nature. You just drink daime and you just look around, and that's it. You reconnect. That's the work of the plants, to connect us once again, because sometimes in the current times we get lost. So we need this powerful reconnection to feel good, to be able to work. When I look around and see what's happening in the Amazons, as we heard, the plant is being sold. It's causing, there are things which are noxious for nature. And I realized that the people who kept the memory alive are now very old. They're beginning to die out. They're beginning to leave this plane. And the young people who took over from them, they're being killed. Because the origin of many tribes, many nations who are connected to nature, they're being attacked. The Amazon jungle is being burnt, razed. And instead of that, they plant transgenic plants. Our grandchildren will live in an artificial world. We cannot allow our memory to disappear. We cannot allow it. We will not let it happen. That's why we keep drinking plants, to feel connected, so to avoid getting lost in the current chaos. Our work is for us to be well, in order to be well with everybody. When you're well, when you're okay, it's catchy. It's like the flu. I mean, somebody else had the flu, they passed it on to me. When you're good, you're okay, you are at peace, or you're good, positive thoughts, all those flowers, you send them to everybody else, and that beauty is caught by everybody else. We need love. Love for ourselves. Nobody else has to love us. We just need to love ourselves. If we love ourselves, that love will be contagious. We need this high vibrational frequency which will cause the butterfly effect and will bring about a world change. I believe, I'm full of faith. It's something that Daime gave me, faith. I am convinced that I will never want for anything in life. Nothing will happen to me. Whatever happens, I'm willing. I don't care. So this word, faith, is a huge power that pushes us on. It makes us trust our brothers, our sisters, trust life, trust that we're okay and we'll be okay, and we can create the human fraternity. Amazonian tribes, American tribes, there are some which are still untouched, although Google has mapped them. They know how to live in peace and harmony, in balance, in small nuclei, in small communities. Men hunt to make sure that nothing is wanting, that there is food, that there is a shelter, so that the families can have a good life. Men make sure that the family is well and protected, the human family. And women make sure that life continues and that there is beauty and song everywhere. In this way of male and female energy, that's where we find balance. They live in the middle of the jungle. All of these are surrounded by supposedly very dangerous animals. And once they told me, more people die run over by cars than eaten alive by anacondas. It's true. Our world is much more aggressive and dangerous than theirs. They know how to live in peace. We just need to learn from them and adapt it to our lives. We have to make sure that we our memories. We have to make sure that indigenous peoples are not destroyed. We have to make sure that plants are not attacked the way they are attacked. We cannot allow this trade, this sacred plant supermarket to go on disrespecting the plant spirit. Plants, all plants are sacred. Some help us wake up, and that's what we are discussing here. As you can see, I'm full of gratitude for the plant and many other plants. I'm full of gratitude because for me it's a school of life which I share with everybody I live with. It's a way, it's a path. For me, the first word that comes to my lips is thanks. And I want to thank you, Geronimo, for everything that you've done here, which is a lot. I hope you will all go back home after this and rest. And I want to thank you all for being here, for sharing. Because this, without you all, would have been impossible. It takes all of us to make up this wonderful puzzle today. Thank you.
El siguiente homenajeado, Manuel Almendro, es psicólogo.
So the next elder we're paying tribute to is Manuel Almendro. He's been tending bridges for many years between, for the knowledge between indigenous communities. And he's created programs in which not only plants are included, but also the peoples and the practitioners of traditional medicine. Thank you very much and good afternoon. I'm really pleased to listen to you because we're creating here a new path, and this new path has to be walked by walking on the earth. So of course I have to thank you all, but basically because these meetings can help us shed more light on the use of some very ancient medicines which 30 years ago no one knew about, and nowadays even people in the academia are taking ayahuasca, and I'm talking from experience. So I have three ways to present, three ways in one actually. One would be the world of Zen. In 1975 I set up the first center in Barcelona. The second way is my profession, my job. I'm a professional clinical psychologist. And the third one is the indigenous traditional medicine. So it's tough, but I'm still kicking. Anyway, the thing is, and I'm answering your question with this, why me? Well, during the 70s, and those of you here from living in Barcelona, we started getting loads of LSD from London, everywhere, to such an extent that I was studying in the University of Barcelona, and Monday at some points I would go and look for my classmates. It's horrible to get there on Monday, and I would find them listening to birds sing in the gardens of the university. And I thought, what's going on? And then I tried it and I understood. And then I started wondering, who knows about this? Because everyone is lost with these experiences that won't fit in the mold we've got. And they told me, the Indians, wow. But then, from forever, I've had this inexplicable attraction for the world of indigenous people. And then I got the money to fly to Mexico, and I wanted to look around, so I went to the Mazateca mountain range, and I met some curanderos there, some healers, some shamans actually, as we would call them, and I found something that was interesting. At that point, the army was taking out the so-called hippies of the time because they had started this process of deterioration. But I got into a family, and I was there all shaved up with a white shirt, without any smell of patchouli, good hairdo. So of course it was like an actual psychologist, and they told me, I mean, I didn't fit into the hippie cliche, but still they accept me in, and they told me, you want to know about what we're doing thing here, and they brought me to this ceremony, which was an atomic bomb for me. It was an H bomb, so that the next morning I went to Oaxaca to dance and eat, because it was impossible for me to understand that. That was a challenge for me, and I like challenges. So that challenges lasted for 27 years. I stayed with the family for 27 years, diving into the inconceivable. Then I took the leap to the Amazon, because I was also very interested in knowing that. And so I went down into the deep Amazon. There was actually a nun, Rosario Larrea, in one of the Peruvian Amazon village, and she told me, I've been praying for you, how can you go there on your own? And I said it was okay. As one of the curanderos said, there's more snakes in Lima. So, you know, living there, this it was like a limbo for me with the children, and there was no money, of course, there was nothing, but it was wonderful. So that's how I got to this place. That's how I got to this world of the inconceivable. I got to be friends with Pablo Amarillos, who's written one of the chapters in one of my books. And I found and I met more people that were in this quest as I was, but basically I wanted to get to the sources of this indigenous knowledge, and the sources in the indigenous, so there I go. Not only I got there, but I dove deep into it. But why did I keep on with it? Well, because of the essence, because that's where the essence was, the essence of many things I had heard about, the essence of all the universal knowledge of all religions and myths. So I got into it. And also there's something fundamental here. If I do what I do, which is clinical psychology, and then there's the world of Zen, and then there's traditional indigenous medicines, all three layers take it up to face suffering and sorrow. And the healers, the curanderos I met, were not so interested in the world of the inconceivable as much as healing the people that would come to them. Also, after over 30 years traveling this world, I've met 3 high curanderos. Most of them were in the mid-range, and some of them were in a lower layer, but with these 3 ones, I wouldn't be able to understand what's actually behind that, but I would dare hinting at something. When you walk into the middle of the jungle, and sometimes without taking anything, you already reach a certain state of the mind. You know, the level at which they work, the interest is 100%, but also the terror is 100%. So I wanted to know more, and if they told me, if you want to know more, you have to do what we do, which is working in the jungle, into the jungle on your own, taking the plant on your own, and then the diets. I've probably tried 80 or 90 different diets. It's not that you get a process from the diet. The diet might be to heal your lungs or your brain or your bones, whatever. Each diet has a primal symbolism that then becomes a reality, and then healing emerges from a deeper conscience, so to speak. It is because the plants you take because you want to get healed interact with ayahuasca, and this they feedback each other to an astounding level, and you start to understand more things there. So there was something that happened to me with some of the masters we can get you to the border, but then to go beyond that, you need to get permission. who do I get to get permission from if not you? And then I found something which is difficult to explain, but I will try and describe it. One night, in the middle of the night, in a remote place, and the jungle is increasingly less remote, a couple of European couple appeared, and they got into this ceremony, and I was there, and we would always take some indigenous people, and then the master, the shaman. And at some point in the ceremony, he told me to go there, and when I was 2 meters away from him, I got into this amazing atmosphere, and this was 30 years ago, and he said, look at what is happening. And the woman, when I was looking at her, I saw she wasn't on her own. There were 3 bodies, and obviously some of the bodies were not material. And then I realized something which is impressive. I was talking to the curandero, and I realized this could never be a hallucination, which is a perception without an object, but that was real. That was a real energetic existence, and there was 2 of us seeing it. So there was an objective vision. So that was the first hammer falling on my head. Secondly, what we were seeing was the past of this woman, all of her memory. That's the second hammer fall, knowing that first you need to solve and dissolve the negative legacy we inherit. So I get into the theories of chaos, I contact some people, and from then on, although my professional task has a motto, when people come to the process, to the center, and I also discuss that in my books, first you need to get rid of your backpack. Why? Because I found accidents of many people going into the world of the subtle and the immaterial with a burden they could not stand. And that's where the accidents I've witnessed started. So what else can I say about this issue? Well, my gratefulness, of course, my gratitude. At a professional level and at a personal level, I realize that these objective visions are fundamental, and the first thing you need to do is sort out your memory, and this is why I have this book on theory of chaos and about how does the work we inherit work. I don't want to get into fractals and more complicated things, but that's the key, and that's fundamental for me. It is fundamental to be able to resolve and dissolve the legacy we get. If we're able to sort that out, we will be able to get into these experiences which are unsoundable and are inconceivable. I also believe there is a relationship between the science and the state of conscience. Écoulé also got into this state of conscience, as many other scientists, to get to understand the ring of benzene. Einstein was also another one who had one of Am I proposing? Well, I am proposing that we should look back. We should get rid of this backpack, this burden. We should get to know this mold, and that is possible. We should sort it out, we should solve it and dissolve it, and then we will be able to get into different states of conscience. What's important about all of this? Well, also following on Zen, and I believe there's more people following this movement, the best about it is that there's an explanation that tells you that you will know what meditation is as you get into the world of subtle and immaterial and invisible. Surprising. Shamanism and traditional medicine goes straight to that point. It doesn't look for any proxies or intermediaries. And that's the second thing I understood, that it was not the liters of ayahuasca that was transferring knowledge into me. It was a different kind of transmission, of transference. And with this 3 supernatural curanderos I met, I learned that they got the knowledge they had thanks to ayahuasca, thanks to the diet, thanks to a huge effort, a natural effort, but basically thanks to transmission. I was witness at some point that these transmissions were totally true and necessary and almost impossible to describe if I don't want to lose my degree. So in the end, you find an inner transformation. Maybe we don't know how we got to this world, but we can know about how we live it. And the knowledge we are gaining back from all this ancient world, we need it because our civilization is crumbling down. The system is collapsing. And this is why there's more and more people getting into this new kind of knowledge, and hopefully we'll be able to offer paths as clean as possible, because the first path to reach knowledge is honesty. Is there anything left for me to know? Well, a lot. There's many stories I need to delve into with them. And also something that calls my attention is that I couldn't bear anything related to Christianism. I had this strong relationship to it. But thanks to them, I got to know not just the Buddhist world, which I already knew, but also the great knowledge existing in the essence of Christianism. Of course, it's not the priests that tell us about it, unfortunately. So the only thing I can tell you is that this is my life, this is my work, and we are pushing forward, and we will keep it up with you as long as we have time. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Manuel.
Thank you, Manuel. Our next speaker is Raquel Mora. She's a psychologist, a daimista of a long-standing tradition, and a colleague of Carlos.
Bueno, buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon. I don't really know what I'm doing here. Yeah, you can say I have a long-standing tradition in Daime, but I'm certainly not a pioneer, not a shaman, not a master in anything. One of the first things I learned in ayahuasca is to be humble. Ayahuasca has taught me how small we are. So I'm here as a small representative of the Daimista group, somebody with a strong, long experience, personal experience with ayahuasca. I have no long intellectual or Amazonian past with the Amazon. I've only visited 3 times, but I've been drinking ayahuasca since '82 regularly. When I came across ayahuasca, I was 22, and as somebody said before, I grew up with ayahuasca, so I don't know what I'd have been like without ayahuasca. I'm saying this because I suspect that much of the knowledge that we get from ayahuasca has to do with life itself and with maturity itself. So for me, I link many of the things that ayahuasca has taught me about life, I relate it to just maturing. I don't know, if I compare myself to friends or people my age who have never drank ayahuasca, I could say that I'm a little bit more aware. I'm more humble, more connected to life, to living energy, visible and invisible. And not only am I grateful for everything we have here, but also from my ancestors. I'm the daughter of a Catholic family with strong ethical values and a high spiritual level. I already had a strong spiritual world ever since I was a child, with my family at home, with my brothers and sisters. A sister of mine has a disability. When I was a teenager, one of my brothers started using cocaine, fell in the world of drugs. I was full of prejudices about drugs because I saw my brother falling prey of drugs. I left my first boyfriend because I found him smoking a joint. I gave him up immediately because I didn't want to have anything to do with drugs. At 22, I finished my degree. I did a master in social research and market research, and then I started working at Synapses Marketing Research, a company led by somebody who was very special. For me, he was, I could say, my first spiritual master, Ignacio Martín Pollo. He was the owner of the company. It was a research company. It was a school of knowledge. I was so amazed when I left the university and I went to work there. I loved my work. I would work for 10, 12 hours a day because I learned a lot about creativity, development. It helped me enrich my vision of life. The company was hugely successful, so not only did I have a good time, I made a lot of money. I mean, at 23, I was making a lot of money at the time. I had a wonderful flat, worked in a wonderful part of town. With all that security and safety, I got married and become independent. And Ignacio, who had traveled all over the world, fell in love with Mapia and Ayahuasca and the Santo Daime. They drank there. And for 3 or 4 years in the company, he'd been telling us, come on, drink with us. And some of us at the company went and drank Daime with him at Bavia, an area where they hosted creative workshops in Almeria. But I was so full of prejudices about substances that I didn't want to have anything to do with that. I mean, I did my work, I was great, but I did go to Bavia, but I never drank the plant there. In fact, one of the times I went there, Tommy Naranjo was there, and they held courses together there, and they drank ayahuasca. I attended, but I never drank because I still had that concern about drugs. But when I got married in 92, September 92, I got married, I was very young, 23. I went to Egypt for my honeymoon. The day we got back from Egypt, I don't know what Egypt gave me, but it made me say yes to ayahuasca somehow. I found those alternative, new, old worlds, very different from my knowledge, and it made me curious. So coming back from my honeymoon, in October, I believe, 92, Padrino Alfredo came to Spain for the first time upon Ignacio Martín's invitation, and I went to that trabajo. I gave in, I surrendered, and I went to that first trabajo. And after all those years, Ignacio invited me. He finally said, but what are you doing there? You crazy, don't go into that, you'll never leave. And he was right. My first trabajo was terrible. I discovered my dark side all of a sudden without a lot of preparation, because although I had studied psychology, I'd never done personal therapy, I'd never done my work, so I was full of fears and anxiety. But the trabajo the day after was exactly the opposite. I saw my virtues, the light, the connection with the higher side that we all have, I myself included, and I was so amazed that I just never stopped. I've been drinking ayahuasca for 29 years. We started in the group of Madrid with Egle, Juan Carlos, Eva, other pioneers, at least as the creation of a group for Santo Daime in Madrid, and we haven't stopped since. Another important landmark for my story with ayahuasca was the year 2000. The year 2000, as many of you know, we had a strong police process against the Daime community in Spain. Fernando Rivero and Chico Corriente were jailed. Then they came out of jail, but they were not allowed to leave the country. I worked with them every day for 5 months. I got to know the reality in Mapia and the police process, a police process that started with Ade, with Esther and all of them. So I started working on legality because it was my work. The physical church was closed. Many people got scared. For all of us, it was a moment of reflection and of realizing that what we were doing was serious, and it was, in inverted commas, illegal, and it affected us all. Our families, personally, even institutionally, and in police terms. So those 5 strong, intense months with Fernando Rivera and Chico Corriente made me become more engaged with the taking of ayahuasca, with the trabajos, and with the legalization process. Up until today, I'm still there in those processes to help legalize the plant. Also, since then, there was a whole process, a lot of tension, light, shadows, war, love, and from all that process, I have to thank the birth of my daughter. She's here. I have to express my gratitude for the birth of my daughter. It's another of the gifts I have to be grateful for, apart from all those intangible gifts. A daughter that came from me, from this light of Santo Daime. What else can I say? Since the year 2000, I can't remember when we bought the property in Latrida. Some 20 years ago, first we hired some premises and we founded the Church of Santo Daime in Madrid. In 2003, we legalized the church. We're now a religious entity nationwide. We have a national board, 7 local chapters which are legally recognized and registered. And for the last 8 or 9 years, together with Juan Carlos, we've been working in La Vera, continuing our work with la ayahuasca, supplementing the Santo Daime calendar with other, perhaps more personal, deeper works, trabajos, which are a bit like the retreats of dietas in the Amazon's Patera, in a kinder way in the Spanish nature, in La Vera, in the Extremadura region. So there we do retreats and our types of dietas to do with this preparatory silence before deeper work with ayahuasca. I'm very happy with the work we're carrying out. We still, of course, support the church in Madrid and nationwide. And I'm just grateful for everything it's given me. Well, for everything it's given me. And, well, physically I feel great drinking ayahuasca. I've got a friend who says, oh, ayahuasca is the drug that's kindest to you afterwards. Perhaps at the time you feel unpleasant because you need to deal with things that you resist. So you need to go into that new invisible world where ego has no control. And all those resistances mean that there are sometimes hard ceremonies or hard works, but the integration, the way you feel afterwards, it's great. You feel strong. I mean, my back has been aching for the last 3 days, and every time I drink ayahuasca, my backache disappears. Emotionally, it makes you tremendously stable. I've seen that not just in myself, in many, I don't know, hundreds, thousands people whom I've seen in our sessions. I've seen so many emotional healings, relationships and conflicts and psychological and emotional confusion which has disappeared. I also worked in clinical psychological work with ayahuasca, and I've seen many benefits, even in ceremonies when I can receive or realize points from about my patients, or I see, I don't know, things that are good for them. It's such a rich source of inspiration for ourselves, about life, about nature, that, well, I don't need to repeat everything my colleagues have expressed so well. So I am grateful for the physical benefit, for the emotional benefit, for the stability the plant has given my life. I'm also grateful for everything I receive in my relationships with my friends, my family, other patients, other people. I'm also grateful for having witnessed so many healing processes for other people who work with the plant. And I feel also deeply grateful, as Pilar said, for this strong connection with nature. After how many years of thinking about myself, you start looking at others, looking at the other, and you relate to the world in a different way, in a more natural, simpler way. I don't know. My journey to live in nature has been one of the best decisions I've ever taken. I've got flowers in my garden. I work my kitchen garden when my backache allows. So this direct communication you have with plants, with animals, with the environment, with nature around you and your own nature, it's amazing. I really cannot compare. I don't know what the world would be like without plant, but I feel deeply grateful to the plant, and I have been for years. I don't know whether I might be forgetting anything. Well, the only thing I can say that is this tribute that you're kindly giving us is just, we're here representing many other people who've had a long experience with the plant, with Daime. I have been one of the founders of the Madrid group since 1992, but I think there are many people from Brazil, from Madrid, from Europe, who've contributed to the whole process. When I started, there was only Daime. I didn't have the option of other possibilities that we have now. Perhaps if this whole supermarket had been available to me back then, I might not be where I am now. But I have to be grateful to Santo Daime for having made me a pioneer. I have to be grateful to Ignacio, to Padrino Alfredo, for having given me this path, this connection. And I have to thank ICERS for being a brave team who in this world fight for the legalization, fight to educate us, to educate people, to provide information, to prevent, and to give us a worthy, dignified position in society. When I went to the Ibiza Congress, I felt, wow, it's the first time that an ayahuasquera goes somewhere which is dignified and worthy, and they're well received and they are properly treated. It's amazing. I've got to be thankful for that turn, for that change between that differentiation between toxic substances, or the difference of taking substances in a toxic way and taking them in a healing, positive, therapeutic way. Which, at the end of the day, is what's really cool, isn't it? The possibility of growing, of understanding life, and of living life with inner peace and basic understanding, to feel at peace with life and living life to the full. I want to thank the invisible worlds, the beings which accompany us, the protections we have, the ignorance we have as well of those invisible worlds, which allow us to be brave and daring and take us in. And I want to thank all my old colleagues with whom we meet every now and again, and we support one another. I met Alchimia at this gathering, and as they said, together we get further. That's what I've learned from Santo Daime, the strength of the union. Together we achieve wonders. We transcend many limits imposed on us by life, by the system. So grateful to you and to all. And that's all. Thank you.
Last but not least, José María Fábregas.
And last but not least, José María Fábregas, a psychiatrist who has an interesting tradition using ayahuasca in difficult cases of addiction. I suppose I'm being asked to speak the last because, not because I'm the youngest one, but because I'm the one who's been taking ayahuasca the shortest time. I started 27 years ago. And when I started taking ayahuasca, I initiated one of my most transcendental experiences personally and professionally. My first time was thanks to Santo Daime. I was in Ibiza in 1992, and some friends convinced me to go to a Santo Daime weekend in Ibiza. On day one, I felt nothing. I so hate it when people tell me, oh, I was illuminated, it was amazing, it was wonderful. Oh no, there are some hard cases like me. Day two, I felt nothing. I was beginning to lose all hope. So I got on a boat with some friends and we went from Ibiza to Mallorca. We started sailing. The wind was against us and we had to go back. And since we had paid for all 3 days, and I'm Catalan at the end of the day, I thought, well, I've already paid for it. I might as well go for day 3. So to be here, you have to cheat a bit. I joined the queue twice. You know, in Daime, you go to the queue and drink. Well, I did it, and then I went back to the queue and drank again. I did feel it then. I thought, wow, this is it. This is it. And here I am, after 27 years and some experiences. You know that I'm a psychiatrist, and I'm interested in psychoactive substances. On a journey with a friend, we decided to go to Mapia. I've just had a big disappointment. When Padrino Alfredo gave me 7 or 8 liters of ayahuasca to bring back to Spain, I thought, well, I'm the chosen one. Well, either these people have a great way of selecting people and they just choose the right few, or they just give us all a bunch of ayahuasca. But I suppose that we were the right selected few, and we did it right, didn't we? When I got back to ayahuasca, to Barcelona, thanks to Juan, I got to meet some amazing people. Hoffman, Gerson, McKenna, Obiols, Samorini. I mean, it really was a special world. And we also found Samoriga, who started researching on the pharmacology of ayahuasca.
Yo venía aquí en una situación un poco especial.
So I was coming here in a special role, special situation. I came here to say thank you. I didn't know about the questions, actually. Just came here to say thank you. Also in this very special situation, because last night at 6 a.m. a brother that was living with me died, and the last paper I signed was his demise. And but still, I wanted to come here to say thank you for some of the things, some of the better things, some of the best things life has given me. If ayahuasca has a main role, main function, it is the ability to understand and accept and assimilate. There's probably a word that outstands here, which is the word forgiveness. Forgiveness is not a word that I use much. I understand forgiveness as peace and generous acceptance and the ability to forgive and to be forgiven. And I believe that ayahuasca gives you that ability to be in peace with yourself and with your environment. Last Saturday, there was someone in this ayahuasca trabajo in this session, and I asked him, what have you been feeling? How would you describe your experience? And he drew this spectacular drawing. There was a sea, and in the sea there was a colorful fish, and that fish was spirituality. And within that sea there was a fish bowl, and within the fish bowl there was again this small fish in colors, which was called religion. And on top of the sea there was a flying fish, which was ayahuasca. And I thought the metaphor was so beautiful to explain the richness and the broadness and the reach. So life is not so much about decisions, but about chance, often. And maybe sometime you have the wind against you, and the door closes and the window opens, but also life leads you to some unexpected situations. I work as a psychiatrist, and I was telling you that in that journey when I went to Mapia, I was working with this NGO, Farmacéuticos Mundi, and we were distributing drugs in places where they did not have access to any medications and medicines. So we forged deep relationships with the shamans and the inhabitants of the place, and we were able to observe the abilities and the potential for the application of a substance like this. There was this one time I was at home, and a patient came by to say goodbye, and former patient of the clinic, and he said he was coming to hug me and to say goodbye because he was going to kill himself. I was really shocked. I mean, it has happened to me all the times, but I was really shocked because he had already given away his money, he had sold his house, he had said goodbye to many people. He had this list, and he was checking everyone he wanted to say goodbye before killing himself. And in the list, the last two names were myself and his mother. And I asked him, why is that? And he said, well, because when I was in the clinic 10 years ago, you gave life back to me and a new opportunity opened up to me, so I owe you an explanation. And then there's my mother, who gave me my life, of course, 35 years ago, and I also have to thank her for that. So I saw he was really serious about it, and I told him, there's something in my head and I would like to propose it to you, but please do this. Say goodbye to your mother, and if after saying goodbye to your mother you still want to kill yourself, please come again here because I want to ask a favor from you. So he said goodbye to his mother. So he gave away the pet dogs he had. So he was really resolved, and he came back to me, and I said, well, I know about this substance I would like to experiment on. And given that you have nothing left to lose. So the guy was staring at me, and he said, how long? And I said, well, a year? Well, he said 6 months. And I said, deal. So I took him to Mapia. I took him to the clinic hospital to get vaccines. Some years ago you needed this vaccine certification. They wouldn't want to give him any vaccine because of his physical condition. And I told the people that I want to bring him to this place, and they said, we can't give him any vaccine because he's going to die. So he just put the stamp on the cot, and he actually died 8 years after. Happy, really happy. He was suffering from AIDS, and he was the first patient I used ayahuasca on for therapeutical purposes. The second one was quite similar. It was this mother that came to see me, and he said, how much is it for my son to die? And I said, well, it's not in my rates yet. We can discuss it. She was really hopeless. She was really in despair. And I told her about this remote possibility to bring her son to this dangerous place to try this substance with still unknown results. And he just said, if you call me and something has happened to him, just make sure something has happened to him. And I don't want to find out it's not true then afterwards. So this person is actually married with 2 children. So this opened for me the possibility to understand that behind this substance there was a potential for harmony which couldn't be disputed or argued against in a society in which, because of the war on drugs, the role for psychoactive substances is difficult. But this is seemingly 1,500 people here in Girona discussing something which fills us with hope and responsibility. We need to do things right so that this really gets the chance it deserves. So again, I have to say thanks. I have to say thank you to the people that have made this possible. And it's funny because some of the psychologists that unintentionally bought this story and came to Mapia to work with me are now speakers in some of the panels here in this conference. And I'm really grateful to them too, especially there's a key person here in this story. There was this woman who lived in Mapia, Liliana. I don't know if she's here, but I'd like to say thank you publicly to her, because thanks to her, a guy like me could spend so much time in a place like that, in the middle of a doctrine, when I wouldn't abide by anything, not even in the military. So I would like to thank those people there who made it possible for us to have these expectations, to open up, to open this center where we can give ayahuasca or psychedelic substances in a legal and controlled way, which are going to open up a different path ahead for us. Psychiatry is one of the disciplines of medicine that has less evolved and developed over the years. We're still using drugs we used 50 years ago. Valium has been in the market for 60 years now. Prozac has been in the market for 40 years now. So we have this way to understand the mental problems by making the symptoms right, but we don't really go to the root cause, to the why. Ayahuasca is a fast track to reach that why, that root cause. It is a shortcut to that unconscious, to that emotional hurdle, and we have to give it a chance. It's not going to fix the world. I mean, all of it. Just like that. But the world of ayahuasca, the shamans fight between them. It's not the panacea that is going to really fix everything, but it is a chance. And this is why here today I would like to thank ISERS because they're taking this step. And they're bringing this from the background to the foreground, and maybe someday this can mean light to many people. Thank you.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias.
Well, thank you very much, all of you. The truth is, I have never organized a tribute ceremony, so I didn't really know how to do it, but after listening to you, I feel it was basically about this, just creating space where some stories could be shared, some life experiences. So thanks for sharing, because I've also seen that in this kind of conferences, they look at ayahuasca from cultural perspectives, anthropological perspectives, psychological perspectives, but not so much from the perspective of people's lives. And that's where ayahuasca really makes a difference, as you have proven with your testimonies. So thank you very much. It's been an honor, and see you soon.